Happy New Year and good morning. I think we have this. Hello.
Hey. How we doing, Marvin?
Do I have clear audio?
I hear you good. Do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
All right. I see you're using the secretarial voice today, making sure everything is getting done. No, the professorial voice today. You using the professorial voice today?
Is that what that is? Can you? How do we spell professorial? How is that a real word, or are you making that
Yes,
up?
that is a real word. I will spell it for you now. Professorial. Professorial.
You're making that word up.
Oh my goodness gracious! Come on now. When I'm right, I'm right. Give me some.
Okay, we'll discuss that over a game of Scrabble someday when it's worth looking it up to prove what.
And femininity and all that good stuff. All those entities. You know, there's a
All
real
those what?
problem with. There's a real problem with it in our community. A true problem with it, and I think we have a good jump off place for a good discussion.
Oh, you think so?
I think so. I think so. We tried this last week. It didn't work out so good.
Yeah, apologies to everyone who thought we would be on last week. We kind of flunked at coordinating schedules last week.
It was Christmas.
Um, no, last week was it Christmas or New Year's, whichever. Anyway, whatever it was, we didn't do well at coordinating
No,
schedules.
we failed
So
miserably.
so yeah, we made what about 4 or 5 attempts and it just never happened.
It never
But
happened. It never happened.
so the good news is hopefully we're on task today.
Yes,
Um,
I got a feeling we will be on today.
and just to clear up something from last week, um, I want you to know that I am going to say that yes, I do believe that angels are defining of masculinity. They are great representatives of masculinity because they are protectors, they are providers, they are attentive to God's command, and I think those are all great qualities of masculinity.
Okay, no argument from me. But I mean, I'm glad you finally went through the work of defining it.
Well, I had to kind of mull that over because I mean, I do think that because the angels are males, but then I thought, how does that really play into masculinity? And I think they do set up um, a standard, if you will, for some great qualities of masculinity as far as accountability, obedience to God's word, and they're protectors and providers. Those are high ranking when it comes to masculinity.
These are very high ranking. I agree with that.
So you have nothing else to say for that. You're gonna let that
No,
ride, huh?
let
Let
that
it stand.
ride. I'm,
Let it
I'm,
stand.
I think I'm ready to jump in this. I'm
Are
ready
you
to jump
ready to
on a
hit the
few things.
topic?
I'm ready to hit the
You're-
topic today. I think I'm ready for
Okay.
that.
So, for those of you all who have been paying attention, we're dealing with masculinity and femininity. We're still in our God's will in your love life. This is still on that same train of thought. We're going to cover several topics right now. Masculinity and femininity is our topic, and so today I'm gonna start off with giving David a question because last week I think we closed out and we were talking some about alpha and beta personalities. And so I'm going to let David give us some working definitions for those, and then I'll go into my question for him.
Uh huh. All right. So alpha and beta. Here's the problem with it. Um, the problem with it is that these are two terms that have kind of, they have secular origins, and I don't know if they translate very well kind of to what we are as Christian people. But the ideas of a male that is leadership oriented and a male that is more passive is universal. And that I think that ultimately is the linchpin, and not I shouldn't say leadership oriented. I should say aggressive versus passive, because there are some alpha males that are not leaders. They are not leaders. They're not.
Do they make decent followers?
They can make, yeah, they can make some good followers.
Okay.
They are the type of people that will latch hold to a vision, and and that vision will give them purpose. Just because you're an alpha male doesn't necessarily mean you have vision for your life, or you have purpose, or you have any understanding of destiny. It just means you have a personality that is aggressive and willing to kind of strike out and go for it. Um, and then there are some beta males that are launched into leadership precisely because they are not aggressive, and the mood of the people who are being led is to follow someone that will make them feel comfortable wherever they are. A beta male will make you feel comfortable wherever you are. You're okay. Everybody's okay.
They're pleasers.
They're pleasers, and if they're not, even if they aren't necessarily pleasers, they are definitely content with whatever anybody brings to the table. They're not going to demand more.
They don't have to get up and go.
They don't have the aggressiveness to demand more from somebody. They're the type of people that will know that there's more needed, and instead of trusting someone else to do it, they'll do it themselves.
A beta will do it themselves
Oh yeah. When they're assigned,
because they don't want to ask.
they don't want to ask. They don't want to lead. They don't want to instruct. They don't want to take the responsibility to lead or instruct. Because just because you're alpha or beta doesn't necessarily mean you can control the roles that you get launched into. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you've seen beta males that are in charge of churches, or that are in charge of institutions. They launch, they might be quite qualified, but not have any leadership instincts whatsoever. But they have the job. There are people who have the job of leadership but don't have any leadership instincts.
Is it instinct or tenacity?
Either one.
Because I find that I think more often than not, betas just don't have the tenacity. You know, they can see, they can say, but they just don't have that. Um, I don't even know what you would call it. I guess the commanding presence. Because
See,
alphas are more apt to, even when they don't attempt to have a commanding presence, it just naturally, like, people are just gravitate to their leadership, um, whether they're attempting to lead or not. They don't even have to attempt to lead, really. People just kind of gravitate to their leadership
a
if
lot
they're
of
an
times,
alpha.
but
Most of
depending,
the time.
well, maybe it depends. If if leadership is a situation to where someone is just striking out and people are following, this will happen. But if leadership is a matter of selection and
Mm.
choosing and gathering votes, so that you are allowed to lead, well, that's a whole different situation. Good morning, Jacqueline.
Good morning. And good morning, Stephen. I sent you a message in your inbox, Stephen. Check that, please. I'm assuming
So
you're
so now we have an idea, we have a grasp on alpha and beta. Let's deal with. I want to first deal with the first question that you sent me earlier.
okay. So the question I told Dave, I kind of gave him a heads up. Usually I let him walk into these things blind, but I gave him a little bit of a heads up, and I told him I wanted to ask him how. What I forgot what I said. Now I need to go back and look at what I said.
Oh, I
How
got
does
it.
a
Oh,
woman? Yeah, read to me what the question was, because I so we can make sure that we're on point with that. Oh, you got to clear your throat for that.
yes.
Okay.
One of my questions, as you said, one of my questions for tomorrow, for you tomorrow, is how does a woman submit to a beta man? All right. So now, the
Because it
very,
sounds like watching paint dry, but go ahead.
the very first thing is this. That's a two-part question. The first question is, how does a woman submit? Let's deal with that one first,
I'm trying to
because
drink my coffee. I can't fool with you
because
today.
because to suggest that submission is harder or easier because of the personality of the man takes away from the idea that the woman also has a personality herself that's at stake.
Oh, so that's why you like that question. You saw that as a point of making a point. Okay.
No, I saw it as a two-way street right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
the same question has to be asked. I'm going to ask you the reverse in a minute, which is how does a woman submit to an alpha? And so let's just start with
Oh,
let's start with
you know, I'm ready for that one, right?
let's just start with how does a woman submit? You say how does a woman submit to a beta male? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that presupposes that this guy is uh, unwilling to be submitted to. He's not unwilling to be submitted to. He's just not very aggressive. He's not.
Every man wants to be submitted to, whether they're doing anything or not.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I mean,
kind of
whether
universal.
they are alpha male or beta male
Yeah.
or
They could be sitting up playing video
zeta
games and
male,
don't have a job, but they still want
they
you to
want to be
submit to
submitted.
them.
Yeah, exactly. So the
Like,
question,
like
so the question becomes, how does a woman
submission submission is
is the
is it's like every man's dream, but it's like getting a Bentley. Can you afford the payments?
yeah? Can you maintain what you buy?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the
Okay, I'm
issue.
gonna let that stand.
So the question becomes again. So how does a woman submit? At some point in time, submission is a conversation, because what may be submission to me may not be submission to some other guy. What may be submission to me may not be submission in her mind, you know. And so you have to figure out, how, what is submission. So when we got to figure this out. So when you talk to a beta male and you start talking to him about, well, how do I submit to you? You know, what are the expectations for this submitting to you? He may not have the best answer for you.
He may not have a answer
He may not have an answer at all,
at all. Trust me. Trust
because
me.
he
He may
doesn't.
not have a answer at all.
Sound like to me you got some experience with this. Let me go on what I'm saying here. So
Yes.
what
Can we
happens is
finish? Go ahead.
so what happens is what happens is when you have this conversation and the beta male says to you, he says, I don't naturally grab the bull by the horns. I don't naturally go out and get it. Right? But by the same token, I don't like when people get out in front of me. Well, so now submitting for this woman becomes, how do I not get out in front of this guy who is not going for it? And then you have to find out, you have to ask yourself, at what point in time is submission and is active and not passive? When are you being submissive when you're pushing him forward? Can you push him forward and still be submissive? So the real question is,
Thank God for Sudoku.
the challenging ones, because you're gonna do a lot of time waiting.
You got plenty of time for Sudoku.
Yeah.
And then that
Um.
was always that that was always my when I was younger and actually really put some thought into um relationships and things like that. That was always my thing about if I would take a man home to meet my father, because I always had a measuring stick. I was raised in a family of alphas. My most of the males and females in my family on my father's side are alpha personalities. So you have a tribe of chiefs. And so I always thought in terms of anyone that I would take home to meet my father. Part of the criteria for me was, is this a man who will be his own man? Or is this a man that my dad will be able to yank his chain all the time? Because I always felt like if I married a man and my dad was always able to yank his chain, we would never really establish um, our own way of being. We would still always be kind of navigating my father's way of what things should be, and not as in just the respect that my father is due as my father, but there comes a point when a woman wants to be with a man that she knows is capable of being the head of his own household. And so always part of my measure stick was, how much of his own man could this person be that I'm going to take to meet my father? So by the time that he got to the point of meeting my father, that was kind of like his rite of passage, because I mean, my father was he was a large stature. He was an alpha personality. He was very much an alpha male, and very, brought his own presence to every situation he entered. And so my last bridge for someone to cross was, let's see how you made it this far, but I need to make sure that how you can navigate this interaction with my father, because my father was an alpha personality. And so the men that I always felt like um, that could not be their own man, so to speak, could not be their own person, and interact with my father in a certain way, always knew, because I would always still be kind of in this triangle of how that worked out as far. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But now,
Um,
can I ask you a question?
mhm.
So, do you think that there would be more conflict with some beta guy you brought home, or some more conflict with the alpha guy that you brought home? I wish we could figure out a different way to talk about this. I really got a problem with all this alpha stuff. But do you feel like there would be a conflict between
Um,
your father? Which one? Who would engender the most conflict?
that's what I needed to see. I needed to see that, and I needed to see how it would be navigated, because that would be very telling to me of what that navigation would be like if this person became a permanent fixture in my life. That was what I needed to know. I needed to know how that would be handled, because um if you just if it was a male who just kind of cowered down and just went with whatever my dad said and never doubled back to see what I felt or what I thought, then it would be this kind of tag along situation in the relationship, versus us being able to establish our own way of being in the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think I'm looking for
So I
something a
needed to
lot simpler.
see.
Like if your father was dealing with a beta male, who is going to get offended first? An alpha male or a beta male? A beta. He'll be offended first, easily. You
Am
may, it
I?
may
And yeah.
you may think that the alpha will be offended first, but an alpha male can take it.
alpha male is okay with the fallout. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
regardless of the fallout. The alpha male is like, okay, so we keep moving, right?
But yeah,
You
whatever it's
know,
going, yeah, whatever's
it's
gonna
just
be. All right, yeah.
yeah. So and that's and that was why I needed to see that because for me, and even now, I still, even though my father has gone on, I still kind of use that as a measuring stick to really figure out how people interact and how they handle certain types of situations because it's very telling of what you're getting in the package.
Right.
And it could, because I'm an alpha personality and I know that about myself. And so, you know, there are pros and cons to, I think, an alpha with a beta and a beta with an alpha and an alpha and an alpha. There's, you know, there are pros and cons to any of those interactions. But when you're talking about attaching your life to someone,
Right.
how those interactions play out affect a lot of things in your life. And so what that was why I wanted to bring the question to you about submitting,
Mm-hmm.
because one thing I have found is, you know, I'm a get up and go person. I am a person that I have vision. I see things moving forward. Like I can have a 10-point plan for the next 15 years.
Right.
And and that does absolutely no good if you have someone that is so okay with the next version of Xbox. And you know, they just don't have that. They don't have, there's just, this is not that significant to them.
But the question is, again, the question is, how do you submit to that person? If that's who you pair your life with, how do you do it? And the question, it's not really that hard of a question. Submission is a universal concept. You just got to do it. You got to figure out what it means for this person, though.
For which person?
Either
For
one,
the
you got to
male
figure.
or for the female?
Well, the female has to figure out what it means to him for her to submit. If submitting is
Oh, his definition and what it
on her
looks like for
agenda,
him.
yeah, if
Yeah.
it's on her
I mean,
agenda,
it might mean for him just fixing breakfast. I mean,
it
because
might.
most of the time, that's the other thing about betas. Betas are really not. They're usually not all that demanding. I mean, their expectations are
That's interesting.
just.
I think the total opposite. I think the betas are needy and very demanding, and alpha males don't
No,
have
I
these
mean as far
are not
as
needy at
what they would
all.
define as submission, not needy. They can be needy um as needing emotional support or needing you know, validation and that kind of thing. But I mean as far as
That's
what they
part of
would define
submission.
as submission, well, yeah, but I mean as far as like their major thing might be like, well, as long as she fixed my eggs like I like them. I mean that might really just be their.
I can no. See, you are confusing willing
Okay.
to settle for without conflict for someone who has the ability to get what they want. For example, what's what I mean by that?
I mean,
I
betas can get what they want. They just don't have as
hold on.
much.
You're jumping
Okay.
out there. Just hold on.
Okay.
A beta could have a long list of things for his submission, what it means to submit to him. I would imagine he would have a long list of things and what it means to submit to that person. I would imagine that. However, because he doesn't want conflict, he will settle for whatever he gets. An alpha may have fewer things on the list as to what it means to be, because he doesn't need to have his manhood.
He's yeah, he's not as
Yeah,
dependent.
yeah, his manhood is not dependent on whether or not she's gonna acquiesce. He's gonna still be a man, and
You are all about big words today.
she's either gonna get in line, or we're gonna deal with it some point in time down the line. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna settle for this. Now I'll take it for a moment to see how long you gonna push me, but I'm not settling for
See, and
this.
that's the alpha. The alpha is like the alpha will take it as a testing. Like, oh, you
Right, right.
testing me.
Oh, you
You
testing me.
you you trying to
Oh,
push my buttons. You trying to
you
see
you
how
don't see
long
what
you
I'm
can get
gonna
away
do.
with that.
Right,
Yeah, you
right,
want that. That's that. Now that's what an alpha would do.
right.
Alpha would be like, oh, okay,
But
okay.
a beta male will say, "Well, you don't want to do it, okay? But you asked me, and I told you this is what I wanted. You know, I told you, you asked me, and I told you, you just don't want to do it, okay?" And that could lead to more arguments. That could lead to some fights. It can, but it'll be a different thing. Again, I think that you dealing with betas and all this, that, and alphas, and all this stuff. There are other parts that go into the personality. For example, is there such thing as an alpha male with a diva personality?
What?
Is there such thing as an alpha male with a diva personality?
An alpha male with a diva personality.
Think of all the big time flamboyant preachers you know. Think of one of those preachers you would call a diva, and tell me if you don't think this guy also is an alpha male. So the answer to that question is yes. There's such thing as an alpha male with a diva personality. Is there such thing
Maybe
as a
we need a definition of a diva personality because I think you threw me off with the diva personality because
okay?
the demanding. Are you saying demanding or picky or what are you?
Whatever.
I want to
Okay.
make sure I know where you're going with this diva
What, what,
part.
whatever we would commonly, whatever traits that we can um, attribute to someone who is a diva, are those traits by and large, can those traits by and large coexist with somebody with an alpha male personality? Whatever those traits are, I could care less what they are. I don't care what we define. We could say someone who is uh, very, very self-centered, very demanding, very egotistical. Um,
Okay, yeah. So yeah, if that's the way you're going, yeah, I do think I know quite a few alpha, especially when you talk about preachers. That yeah, they have some yeah
no,
yeah. I know a few of those. Yeah.
they could be spoiled and kind of diva, you know, but they're very much
I
alpha
think I
male.
would use the word spoiled more than diva, because diva to me I think takes another spin. But yeah,
Well, I ain't trying to. Well, I mean, I ain't trying to say nobody is gay or homosexual, but I would tell you that there are homosexual alpha males.
you just can't you can't you just you just can't, can you? You just
Somebody got to lead that relationship. Help us, Jesus, help us. Anyway, so these are natural human.
you
These are
know
human
keeping you
beings.
on a train track is like you're just apt to derail.
No, no, I'm on point today. We are doing this today. We are on point today. We are on point today. So you have to just understand that
So
when you
you
start,
saying that submission is relative to what that person defines as
it's
submission. So
relative to what that male defines as submission. Yes.
because I think for okay, then let me turn it
Now,
around because
if
I
you want to
think
talk
for an
about
alpha
Bible,
male,
no, let me drop this in there real quick.
okay,
When we talk about the Bible, now submission is a few things. So like when Paul says, "Submit ye one to another," somehow another women are taking that to say, "Well, the Bible said we're supposed to submit to each other." No, what that means, baby, that is a sexual connotation. This is why you can't. This is why you can't even fast. You can't fast without getting permission to fast from your husband or from your wife because you can't be denying each other sexual whatever because you decide you want to be about Jesus. You got to get there needs to be an agreement. That's what that submit you one to another ain't got nothing to do with. Uh, Dear, did you want me to cook the breakfast this morning? And no, that's not what that's about. Now, when the Bible tells wives to submit to their husbands, this is why the Bible says to wives submit and tells husbands to love. Notice,
right,
women
very
women
much so.
women are not commanded to love their husbands. Brother, if you're sitting around here wondering if she love you, don't get spiritual and say the Bible says you're supposed to love. No, the Bible don't say that she's supposed to love you. It says you're supposed to love her, and
But
she's
don't
supposed
you
to
think
submit
that
to you.
that's written in? And what I mean by that is women are much much more it's much more written into the code of a woman to be loving and to be nurturing. And I think that's one of those things that is not said because it just seems to be.
But see, that's the problem with that is, you know, this is not Bible, but I have another scripture for you. It's a thin
Okay.
line between love
You
and
know
hate.
what? That is very true.
The
That is
meanest,
very, very
the,
true.
the, the sweetest woman in the world can be the meanest woman in the world
You know what? Stop it.
if you make her that way. So,
You
so,
know
so,
what?
it's a different setup for a number of reasons. And if we ever had the bravery to really talk, not we as in terms of you and I, but if people had the real bravery to talk about these things, um, they don't tell these jokes to their husbands.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to thank you.
But it's not.
Thank
It's
you. That's
what
the
I'm
point
saying.
that I'm trying
It's
to make because he's
the
setting
point.
something out there. He's setting something out
No,
there on the table that I don't think he wants people
no. The point I'm
to
making
run with
is the
because
point I'm
somebody's gonna
making.
run with that.
The point I'm making is when God is talking and giving commandments about marriage, He says to the man, "Love your wife as Christ loved the church." He says to the woman, "Submit."
But don't you think that's because the need for men to be attentive is something that men may need more instruction in?
I mean, if we think that God was having a Dr. Phil moment, maybe,
You know what?
but I
It's
don't think
God's
God was having a Dr. Phil
creation. I
moment.
mean, God knew.
God knows it. But that's what I'm trying to say. Listen, look. I want you to feel me on this one. When you think about commandments, think about the idea of necessity. All right? Understand about the idea of necessity. God was not, He will not command something that He doesn't think that is within your purview and necessary at the same time.
Right.
For
Exactly.
example, so Jesus tells His disciples, love ye one another, right? And then He says, I prayed for you that you would be one. Now, here's the thing. Love is something that you are capable of doing. Love is something you have the ability to do. By simple commandment, you can do it. Love one another. But unity, that's going to take a miracle. So I pray to God about the miracle. It's a whole different way of understanding the necessity. God doesn't command us, He doesn't command us to be one. Jesus prays that we would be one as Him and Father are one. Why? Because that's a God thing. Only God can do it. If you'll let me use the phrase. God doesn't say, disciples, I want y'all to be one. And that's why when I hear preachers get up and saying, we ought to be one. Like, you can preach that all day long, brother. But that's a God function. And Lord, help us get on the same agenda. That's a God function. God does that. God is the one that creates or permits unity or makes unity a possibility.
What
But
God
he took,
has joined together.
where's that in the Bible? Was that in the Bible somewhere? Was it in the Bible? That's in the Bible. I can't. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Unity is. I'm trying to get you to understand the essence of commandment, advice, and miracle. God says to the man, love your wife. You are capable of doing this. And I am commanding you to do so because it is important that you invest yourself in loving your wife. It will not be easy. It will not come as naturally as you think it will. Because when I say love your wife, I'm extending this beyond the fact of finding pleasure in your wife. No,
Beyond the emotions of the moment.
right. Beyond the stuff you like about her. Love your wife. This is why should we love her? Because, if you don't love her, you'll do things against her. And no man hurteth his own body, right? They won't do it, right? So now watch this. He says to the woman, wives, submit to your own husband. Now, before I even get to the direct object of own, before I get to that particular word own, let's just deal with the whole submit part. He commands, wife, submit to your husband. Why does he command it? He commands it because essentially, even though it has been the order of things, it is not a natural thing for you to do so as a thinking individual. there will be times as a thinking individual you will not agree with him. You will not like the decision he makes.
Yeah, and that's and that's why I bring up the example that I did about, bringing, how I would, my mindset about bringing someone home to my father, because I always wanted to feel like if I'm going to submit to a man as my husband, I needed to know that he at least had some ability to hear my thoughts and my concerns. Because if my thoughts and my concerns were heard, then I could at least say, I'm going to trust him to navigate whatever comes in our life
You
with the
dating
best. Huh?
you dating handicapped men? You trying to see if they have the ability to hear? You dating handicapped
No,
men? Oh,
no,
okay.
but here's okay.
They
What
all
I,
have the ability. Do they have the
but the
willingness to hear?
right,
Oh yeah,
the if he could have um some consideration for my concerns,
right.
at that point I would know that I could trust him in making the best decision for the outcomes that were primary, but with the consideration of what it meant for the things that were my concern. And that's for me, that was part of knowing that I could submit, not about getting my way, but about knowing that, okay, whatever the ultimate outcome is that we're working towards in whatever decision is made, that my concerns did not just got dished to the side, but they were at least considered. Because if you're going to attach your life to someone, you want it to be someone who considers what's important to you.
I agree.
And that's part of, if a person makes decisions with no consideration of you, that does not give you much indication of having any value in the relationship. And
But what if you have
so,
a guy? What if you? Oh, let's. What if you have a guy who has not yet matured? See, women mistake lack in a relationship for uh, an underestimation of their personal value, when in reality it just may be a reflection of the man's immaturity. Everyone has to grow into a certain role.
oh
He,
yeah, I agree, but I think that a person's history gives you some indication of how well they consider
I mean,
other factors. They
what
may
if you
not
date
I
him?
mean, nobody is going to make the perfect decision every time, regardless of maturity. We're
Think about
all going to
this.
make some wrong decisions at some
Think
point.
about this, Mary. Think about this. Let's say you marry a dude who got three houses, two Bentleys, Mercedes Benz. He just kicks around in $3, $4 million in the bank. You marry this guy. He's 50 years old. And you come in with all your bright ideas and suggestions. Now he done made it 50 years and got this. You done made it how many years you done made it? You ain't got none of that. And you come with all your bright ideas and suggestions. And then when he doesn't, do those things, you say, "Oh, you don't hear me, you don't love me," And he says, he looks at you, and he says, "Well, my experience has said that I know what the heck I'm doing. I mean, look, you know what I'm saying? Uh, why do you think that I suddenly should correct my behavior when my behavior has gotten me here?" So we have to start understanding, and women do this to themselves all the time. Women think
Everything
that,
you just described is probably the reason why I have no interest in dating the guy who has the millions, who has the. I mean, it's
right.
just uh, there's no there's that's probably the last guy I would date. I mean, and matter of fact, I would say the guy who flaunts, his I haves is probably the most
Who said he's flaunting it?
disinteresting to
But
me at all.
Marva, I'm not saying this dude. Let's say this dude ain't flaunting it. I'm just saying this guy has made it from day one to
No,
year
he's flaunting it, and
50.
and let me
Well,
tell you why I say he's
what?
flaunting it. See,
Hold on,
this
hold
we
on.
can. Okay,
Let me make this point. 'Cause I'm not trying. I'm not.
okay.
I don't want to get into to that argument. I want to get to the point where you understand why sometimes early on in relationships that every consideration isn't made. I get the impression a lot of times that women think that I'm gonna marry this guy who's got all this stuff together, and I'm going to his life and I'm gonna take it over. No, no,
No,
hold on,
that's
hold
that.
on,
No,
calm down, calm down, calm down, calm
I
down.
mean, any woman that enters into the relationship that way,
Uh-huh.
she's setting herself up for disappointment.
I think so. Now let me ask you this: is it possible? Is it within the realm of possibility? Not just the realm of possibility. Is it very possible that a woman could think, when I get in this man's life, this is gonna change?
I think a lot of people go into that, and
Okay,
actually,
okay,
one of my secondary questions, or not questions, but things that I wanted to bring up today too, was the difference in feminine influence and feminine domination, because those are two different. That's kind of where we're kind of headed. Is there's a difference in a woman having influence and having a man's ear, and a woman who dominates her man.
okay, all
Those
right.
are those because and a lot of people don't know how to make those distinctions, because a lot of times when a woman has her man's ear, other men will, say negative things about that and say, oh, he's letting her dominate him, but it
Mm,
may not always be he's dominating her. He may actually just recognize what she brings, her insight and her thought process may have that much influence with him. And those are two very different things. And I think how we define those um, makes a big difference in understanding what femininity can do in a relationship. And I think a lot of women have that misunderstanding of what it means to have influence versus dominating, because you can have influence in a man's have his ear and him be very aware of and trust your thought and your insight. That doesn't mean that you dominate him. That a dominating woman um is on a whole other level.
well,
All I get is a mm-hmm.
no, there's plenty to be said about that. I'm just trying to see if this is next week's topic because see, here's the point. Here's the thing. I don't think, and I was going to say women, but I think people. This applies to most people, but in this situation, I'm just going to say women to make it more inflammatory. But I do think this applies to people in general. I don't think women understand the difference between advice and instructions.
Mm.
And they think the minute they open their mouth and give their opinion about a thing, or give an opinion about a thing, that this ought to be instructive, and that the man ought to do whatever her opinion is. Because the reason I say that is, if he doesn't do it and it doesn't work out, she will say, as a result, well, I told you to do such and such and such. And he will, or she will say, you didn't listen to me when I told you such and such and such. And so we have mistaken listening to you as doing what you say and advice for instruction. And I think that when we discover what those words really mean, advice versus instruction,
Okay,
and
so let me throw a monkey wrench in there.
go ahead. That was the monkey wrench.
No, I got a monkey wrench for your monkey wrench.
Okay, wait, go give me the monkey wrench.
So let's add into that prophetic vision.
Let's not.
No, 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 no. I'm for real,
Okay,
because I was very much recently in a scenario where I said to a person, this, and this on this time frame because of this, and this,
okay.
and I mean, none of it looked. It didn't at the time. It just didn't look like it. Just it wasn't. there was no evidence of it, so to speak, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
It didn't look, it just seemed like, okay, yeah, yeah, whatever. But then after the fact, and of course, you know me, I was the person that went back and said, remember, this is why I was saying, because I saw it.
Okay.
And
Um,
I said this and this and this. And so I went back and said, see, this is why I was saying, because I saw it. Now, the fact that it went undone and it's past, and that moment is past and the opportunity is past. That's not to say that there won't be another opportunity to, that whatever, whatever. But I mean, it was not a command, it was not an instruction, so to speak. It was just, I expressed what I saw, and I expressed the time frame that I saw it, and it didn't
so
it didn't happen.
you gave him your opinion,
Yeah, I mean, he did. I mean, that's on him. I mean,
and he listened to your opinion, and your opinion happened to be right this time. But in listening to your opinion, he
it
went.
wasn't my opinion, it was something I saw prophetically. You want me to keep it in another context? Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
yeah.
Okay.
The last thing I would ever want is for someone to come tell me, "Well, God said do such and such and such." Because I'm just
No,
like,
I wasn't trying to be
let
super
me
deep. I wasn't.
listen, just listen,
Okay.
listen, listen. You can't argue with God. So if someone tells you, you know, prophetically, I see such and such, it's like, oh my God, I can't argue with God. And then that shuts down all discussion, all thought. It's out the window. There's no reason to think about it anymore because if God said it, then that
I mean,
settles it.
I didn't make it like super deep or anything. I just
Well,
expressed what I saw. I
the,
was like,
well,
this
the,
is what I see.
well, let me ask you this, because I don't want to get so much yet, not yet. I do want to get into it. I don't want to get so much into how did you go, what was your approach about it, but I want to stay at the point where you said it happened. He didn't do anything about it. You turned out you were right. You know, at that particular point in time, you got to understand he is not in the OSHA when you start talking to him about the situation. All he hears is you are giving him your opinion about what it is that you think is going on. And he feels like, oh, okay, I'm on the ground floor with this, and I got experience with this. Maybe I see it the way I'm gonna see it, and I'm gonna do it how I'm gonna do it. You gave him the best you got. Now, if you're gonna be a prophet, then you have to accept the penalty of the prophet. The penalty of the prophet is sometimes they'll do it, sometimes they won't.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
but
And
now.
that's
But if
why
you're
I
gonna
was
be his,
saying,
if you're gonna be his woman, the penalty is different. Don't be rolling your eyes now. Don't be rolling your eyes now. Don't make me call him. I'll call him. I promise I'll call him. I'll call him. I'll tell him. I'll tell him like I told him. It's two different. All right, Mark. So may the Lord watch
yeah, I
between me and
think.
thee while we absent.
Oh, you ready to Benedict now? You
One
ready?
from one from another.
You ready to call for the benediction
This
now?
we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Look, we'll see you guys next week.
What is our topic?
Um,
What are we talking
oh, we're
about
gonna
next
pick it up.
week?
We're gonna pick it up
Because
right here.
I think you just ran out the side door of the church. I think
Oh,
just
I
now.
did. We
I
we
think
we
you
we
just.
we gonna pick it up
I,
right here.
I don't even think you were in the sanctuary when the benediction happened. I think you were back in the office already.
We gonna talk about this right here. Well, you know, after you preach, you got to go back in the office because you change your shirt. I'll change
Yeah.
my shirt a little
Okay.
bit longer. But we're gonna pick it up right here, Marvin. And the topic for next week is how did you say it? That's the topic for next
No,
week.
no.
Yeah,
Can we do influence and domination
that's the same
versus?
thing. That's the same thing. How did you say it? Influence and domination? How did you say it, baby? Would you do such and such and such? Or you need to go out there and do this now. Influence and domination. How did you say it?
Okay, fine. How did you say it is our topic for next week. Influence and domination. I'm writing this down. So, um,
I'm
influence
doing the
versus
end of
domination.
the end of the year review with my brother on next week, y'all. It's gonna be funny. We got some stuff to talk about. Um, I'm enjoying this F-45 training program here in Memphis.
What is
Marv,
that?
it's a new workout plan where you like do intervals, and they try to kill you for like 45 minutes.
Oh.
And Marv, I'm trying to tell you, when I get back in shape, see, I'm getting married on y'all Negroes. Y'all don't know, I'm gonna get married. She gonna be fine. I'm gonna get married, and she gonna look good, and I'm gonna look good, and y'all gonna be mad, and we're not gonna be worried about alpha and beta submission and all that.
So you're gonna have other things to do
we got other
besides
things,
worry about that.
we got other things to do, so I worry about that. Anyway, all right, Mama, I got to go.
All right. Well, have a wonderful week. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
And
Mama.
next week, as David has um, instructed us, our topic will be how did you say it?
How
Influence
did you
versus
say?
domination.
That's
And I
right.
think we have seen a great example of the alpha personality. Is he just declared this is what we're talking about next week? Um, and see, most of y'all just have no idea as to how this plays out between David and I because we're both alpha personalities. And so I'm kind of used to that. And
We've been friends for years, Marvin. We've been friends
decades at
for
this point.
man. Is it that long? It ain't that long.
Decades.
We ain't got decades yet. Oh my God.
We're like 15 minutes from decades. Yeah.
Jeez, my God,
Yeah.
man, you trying to make me feel
So
old.
yeah, I
I remember.
was
I
now
remember.
was that a suggestion or a command?
What that we 15 minutes from being
No, that
old.
I'm making you feel old.
No, that was a suggestion. You definitely making me feel old. I remember. Listen, I remember your daughter when she was really a young girl, and I remember your baby boy when he wasn't even born.
I know, right?
Good gracious alive, man! I can't believe
I
this.
know, right?
All right, I'll talk to you later, Marvin.
All right, have a good week,
Be
and
blessed.
may the Lord watch between me and thee,
I
while we're
already
absent
prayed
one
it.
from
Oh,
another.
you gotta pray it.
Oh,
Oh, you gotta pray it. Go
my
ahead.
bad.
You got no.
No, I forget. We done already been addicted. They flicking the
That,
lights in the
that
church, telling us to get
that's
out
right.
now, ain't
Time to
they?
leave. That's right.
All right, have a good one. I'll see you next week.
Take care, Marvin. See you next week. Goodbye.
All right, bye bye.